My name is Michael Lyons. I've spent the last 2.5 years tangling with the question of what do we want from local government and how is it best funded. And I'm pleased to see so many people here for this event to get a little deeper into the report than some of the press coverage has so far managed to do. I've long felt that required reading for students of local government includes both Lewis Carroll and Mervyn Peake. And I've flown this morning from Belfast, where the government is trying to, some would say, impose devolution, and local politicians are arguing for a change of the balance of funding with more central funding. So that's, of course, the same country that we all live in. We'll come back to both of those issues, devolution, funding, and indeed balance of funding later on. Let me do no more than to start the proceedings rolling by introducing Ed Balls, Economic Secretary for the Treasury. Ed will have to go immediately after he's spoken, but I'm really pleased that he's here to speak to us this morning. Ed Balls.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael, and welcome to this conference. It's a great honour to be able to open it this morning and to be here in this fine hotel. As my colleague Phil Willis said to me on the way in, he said, Ed, we finally made it to the West Wing. And it's good to be here. The responsibility in the Treasury for dealing with these issues around local government is actually John Healey, the Financial Secretary, but he had to be abroad today. I'm very pleased indeed that Phil Willis, the local government minister, will respond formally to the Lyons Review in detail in his speech this morning. And Phil and I have been discussing this with John and the Chancellor over a number of months, worked very closely together. So he will set out a detailed response which sets out our collective government view. But I wanted to come along just to be here at the very beginning of this conference on behalf of the Financial Secretary, the Chancellor and the whole of the Treasury to express our gratitude to Sir Michael and to his team at the Treasury for all the work they've done over the last year to produce this excellent report. Reform of local government is a very wide-ranging, a very complex area. It evokes strong passions. That's why, as Michael says in his report, there isn't any simple golden solution that will please everybody. But this analysis is very sophisticated. The argument he sets out will form the basis of a new stage in debate in the coming months and years. It will show how, in the decade ahead, government, both central and local, can work together to the best advantage of our citizens. And it does so, I think, on the basis of what is already a renaissance happening in local government around our country. We have the Mayor of London here, and his leadership in London has been very important indeed in taking forward our capital city over recent years. Also, the renaissance happening in many of our large urban centres around the country, in Manchester, which we saw when we went to our conference there in September, in Newcastle, in Liverpool, in Leeds, and in some of the smaller towns and cities. I've seen in my own area, Wakefield, the way in which leadership from both the leader of the council and the chief executive, in some ways compelled along by the CPA, but also new opportunities, has really changed the way in which our city will work. A huge amount of urban regeneration now happening in the town centre. Part of that shift which is encouraging more people to live in our cities, but also empowering local government around the country. In the end, if we want to empower our citizens and our communities, we need to make sure that their preferences are heard, that policies are properly coordinated, and local government has got to be fundamental to delivering that goal. And that's why, and I know Phil will agree with this, we would like to see over the next few years a deepening partnership between central government and local government. And I know that Michael's approach, the development approach he sets out in his document, with both issues to look at in the short term but also issues for us to look at in the medium term, is very much consistent with that. As Phil will explain in greater detail, we'll be implementing the local government white paper, which we published last autumn, which sets out proposals to allow local government to be more responsive within a reformed performance management framework. And I know Michael supports that agenda, and also suggests ways of going further. And these are important arguments which I know Phil will want to respond to. In his report, Michael also urges local government to play an even greater role in future in our prosperity and growth agenda. And I still feel that's an area where there's a lot more which can be done. Our review of subnational economic development and regeneration provides a focus for our work, and we want local government to play a bigger role in city regions, working with the regional development agencies to drive the prosperity of city regions and localities forward. And as Phil will also set out in his speech, in the budget we set out plans to take forward a number of specific short-term recommendations made by Sir Michael to increase the flexibility available to local government through reducing ring fencing in all its forms and through bearing down on unnecessary data and reporting requirements, to consider how we can develop a model for supplementary business rates, to reform the incentives and the grant systems, including the local authority business growth incentives, and also to modernise the empty property relief from business rates following Michael's recommendation, and to assess the other reliefs and exemptions from business rates. There are some other recommendations which we need to look at more carefully in the coming months. For instance, in the case of council tax benefit, where Michael sets out a powerful case, but where there are important interactions with housing benefit, and which we need to look at as part of our overall tax and benefit priorities. There are also some short-term recommendations where, on balance, for example, the proposal to look at the tourist tax, where we are more sceptical. At the same time, the inquiry sets out a range of radical options for the long term, such as supplementing or replacing council tax, and also looking at potentially a greater role for assignment of national taxes. It's clear that none of these options are easy, but equally it would be wrong to start out from a position that they're impossible. As Michael says, that they need to be debated, they need to be weighed up. We need real discussion in the coming months, and that's something which we are very committed to doing, because I think moving forward on that medium to long-term agenda is also an important part of that strengthened partnership between central and local government. In this way, and more broadly, the report of the inquiry will reform the debate around local government and local government finance for a generation to come. We hope today, and this is a really well-attended conference with so many people here from all parts of the country and our community, we hope that today will be the beginning of that debate. So on behalf of the Treasury, and I know Phil will echo this on behalf of the government too, we really welcome Sir Michael's report and his recommendations and look forward to hearing the results of today's conference. Thank you very much.